Today I'm joined by Christopher, ex-Databricks solution architect, and we're going deep into the full interview process and what working inside Databricks is really like. So if you're targeting Databricks, Snowflake, NVIDIA, or any high-level like solution architect role, this episode is going to save you a lot of time. Hi, Christopher, and nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Cool. We're going to start with some intro. If you can share a little bit about your background and what brought you to become a solution architect.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in the tech field now for well over 14 years, and almost all of that time has been as a sales engineer, solutions architect, customer engineer, whatever you want to call the role. It's basically what I've been doing is pre-sales engineering for about 14 years. Started off my career at IBM. So I was previous to that, I was working as a VBA programmer for a local power line construction company through Robert Half Consulting, and reached out to IBM. And my first hiring manager gave me this opening for a role for a system engineer, and I always thought, hey, system engineer is like integrating all these like system admin kind of stuff. He's like, no. And basically, they're calling system engineer was a pre-sales engineer. And I thought to myself, well, this is an interesting sort of role. I wasn't sure if it was the right fit for me, but I'm like, let me try it for a few years. And ever since then, I don't see myself in any other role than a pre-sales engineer, just because of what I get to do on a day-to-day basis. So at IBM, I was there for about 7 years. I was basically all my time there was spent as a pre-sales engineer for the Netezza product line. So big data analytics, things like data lakes as well. But most of my time was spent with talking to customers about Netezza, which is a data warehouse appliance. From there, I moved to Snowflake. I was there for about a little bit less than a year, but same idea, a pre-sales engineer for Snowflake's cloud-based data warehouse. After Snowflake, I spent about almost 5 years at Google Cloud. So I was a customer engineer there, fancy word for a pre-sales engineer. I spent my first half as a generalist customer engineer, but focused deep on the data analytics stack. And then the last half of my career at Google, I spent as a specialist in the data analytics space. So other more generalist sales engineers would bring me in for deeper conversations on anything that dealt with the data platform in Google. And then most recently, I was at Databricks for a little bit over a year. I was in the healthcare vertical. So mostly my customers were academic medical centers, a few payers, and a health tech company as well. So that's my career in a nutshell.
Awesome. Yeah. First question before we dive into the interview process. Do you feel there's a difference between like solution architect that you've had like currently at Tech System, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And like at Databricks, is there like any significant difference you've seen there?
Yeah, I mean, where I'm at right now at Tech Systems Global Services, it's a services integrator. So basically what we do is, rather than us selling a product, we're selling the services to implement a product. And I'm focused on the Google Cloud side of things. So it's definitely a different mindset. It's still pre-sales. You're still doing solutioning kind of work, like building out architectures, justifying, okay, why would we go this direction versus another direction? But where I'm at currently, you're not selling a product, you're selling a people that are going to implement that product. So it's definitely a different mindset, because I'd say it's a little bit easier when you're selling a product, because you have the one thing that you focus on. It's like at Databricks, you're selling the customer why their lives are going to be better when they're going to be using Databricks versus competitor products. versus where I'm currently at. It's more like you're selling the speed to go to market versus what this specific product is going to do for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Let's dive into the interview process. Would love to hear from beginning to end, even did you apply online, and what was the interview like from recruiter round to kind of last round?
Yeah, of course. So I actually applied to Databricks 2 times. The first time it wasn't successful, but the second time it was. I'll go through quickly what the first time looked like. So both times were via referrals. And I've seen that pretty much in all my career as a sales engineer from the beginning to today. Referrals are going to be king for actually getting noticed. The first time was through he's still a current employee there. There was an opening on a team. I had the initial interview with the recruiter itself. So even if you come in as a referral, you get assigned to a recruiter, and then the recruiter goes through, does their thing of checking basically, this is what the position is, what have you done over the past X amount of years to make sure that you're an actual fit for the opening. The first one I had, it ended at the hiring manager phase. So I had an interview with the hiring manager. My experience with that first one was a little bit off, I guess you could say. The hiring manager, I felt, wasn't really prepared for the interview. She was basically just very distant. She wasn't really paying attention to what I was saying. It was basically introducing myself and then going through what I've done, and wasn't really much interest in there, and nothing really came out of that first one, which wasn't too surprising. So then a few months later, I reached out to another person that I knew in Databricks, who was previously working alongside me at Google, and got assigned to another recruiter at that point in time. That one was obviously successful because I was working at Databricks for over a year. The process looked like the same thing. The first round was the recruiter just going through, okay, this is the opportunity. This is the opening. This is, what the actual process looks like. So we walked through mostly of what it looked like. It did change a tiny bit throughout the actual process itself versus what it was stated at that first meeting. But then it's just setting up the additional meeting with the hiring manager after that. So my hiring manager interview, and one thing before I go further, they are pretty descriptive of the steps, and they do prepare you at each step. So it's not even though it changed in the midway, you are being given guidance as each interview goes through. So once you pass one interview, they'll prepare you for the next one. That's basically the recruiter's job, is to get your questions answered of what the process is, what the next steps are, and that kind of stuff. So the second interview for me was the hiring manager interview. The way that looked was basically, again, just introducing myself. What have I done? Why am I interested in Databricks? And the hiring manager went into a little bit deeper into what the opening was. So for me, it was a healthcare, life sciences vertical. Describing basically what the roles and responsibilities for that position would be, what the expectations are, what the team structure was, things like, what level of technical ability do you need? So for a solutions architect at Databricks, what was stated to me at that time is you get to 200 level of knowledge, and then if it needs to be 300 or deeper, that's when they have what are called specialist solutions architects that are more focused in on a specific product area. So after explaining what the different roles are, what the actual solutions architect role was. She went through what the actual patch was, what type of customers that we had, and then went into a little bit more of like the formal part of the interview of like trying to, see what my knowledge is and see if she wants to proceed on to the further rounds. So by the time I got through everything, she only really had time to ask 2 questions. They're going to be mostly geared towards like tell me a time type of questions. So though the ones that I got were, first one was like ask me about a project that failed. I don't have my notes on like what exactly it was, but that's one of the biggest things of like if you're interviewing for a sales engineer, solutions architect, pre-sales kind of a role, you should have a decent amount of customer stories. Like for this one, like tell me about a project that failed. They're looking for you to be truthful. They're looking for you to basically show that, okay, this is something that didn't work out for you, but what did you actually learn through that process? And what are the steps that you took that are going to prevent this from happening again? They're not trying to like catch you. They're not really, during that process, they're asking you, okay, like as you're describing the situation, they're saying, oh, well, what would you do knowing that you went through this process? How would you react if you came against it again? And they might ask you some specifics on like what the actual opportunity was that you're talking about. But as long as you went through that, it's pretty simple. The other question that I got asked from her specifically was to basically describe a project that I was proud of. So they're looking to see in something like that of what drives you, what motivates you as a solutions architect, as a person. More than likely, they're trying to see if you're going to be a good fit for the team that you're interviewing for. That's another one I didn't take notes on what the actual project was that I was proud of, but like going back to having a few projects documented of like, okay, this is something that failed, this is something that went right, this is something that I was proud of, this is something where I had a conflict with a coworker, this is where a customer wasn't satisfied with the way the project or a product specifically. How did you react to that? So that was what my hiring manager interview looked like. From that point, once she made the decision that, okay, we're going to move forward with you, there's 2 portions for the next part. For me, they did this sort of in parallel. There's what was the product was? I've got some notes here. I think it was Code Signal. Let me just check to be 100% sure. I've got some tabs open here. What the actual, I think it was called Code Signal. And what that is it's a platform that they utilize, because previously and this is the part where I was talking about stuff changed up in between the rounds. Previously to when they changed it to Code Signal, what they would do is they would give you a notebook and they would say, okay, spin up a Databricks instance and solve the problems that are in the notebook. So they would be things like they give you like a data set, like birth names or whatever, or other type of data sets, depending on what the actual vertical you're in, what the role would be. But it's basically like a SQL type of a problem or a Python type of a problem, depending on which problem you pick. So they're going to ask you, okay, are you deeper in SQL? Are you deeper in machine learning? Are you deeper in building out ETL pipelines? Based off of that, that's what the notebook that you would get. So for me, it was SQL. It was based initially off of doing aggregates, figuring out based off of, the notebook itself, the issue of, how to solve that using Databricks in DB SQL. I got that notebook, but then all of a sudden it changed to code signal. So now code signal is a little bit different. It's not like a notebook kind of an environment. It's like a code testing environment. And the expectations for me was finish this within 7 days. We don't want you spending more than 3 hours on the actual problems themselves. And then once you start, there's that 7-day timeline that you have to finish. So you have 7 days to start. Once you start, you had 7 days to finish it. And they don't want you to spend more than, actually, I shouldn't say 3 hours, it was 90 minutes, that they don't want you to spend more than 90 minutes on these problems. The way that it works is that as you go through each of those technical questions, it's the same thing. They ask you, okay, what are you strong on? Is it going to be SQL? Is it going to be machine learning? Is it going to be Python? Wherever one you pick is how the platform then decides. But the actual questions are going to be the same. So it'll start off with some type of a question of okay, these are the tables that you have. Tell me how you would rank a certain customer based off of state and the revenue, and drilling down into that into a data analytics kind of problem. And as you solve each of those questions, it goes a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And then it moves on to the next question. There's 5 main quote unquote use cases that you have. And as you solve them, you could test the code because it's a live code kind of environment. So you could test your code. It's not like you submit a answer and then it's either wrong or right. You have the ability to run the code, make sure it runs. They're not telling you what the actual answer is. They just tell you, okay, if it's technically correct, because there might be a few answers to a specific question. Like the SQL will run, it'll give you an answer, but the results, they're not saying what the results should be. They're just saying, okay, that ran, looks good, but there might be more optimal ways of running, say, the specific SQL or whatever it might be to get to the answer that you're going through. In that same time, while you're doing the code assessment platform approach, you're getting ready for the panel interview. So what the panel interview is it's basically like a mock customer meeting. They give you a template that you could use, and they say, well, you could either do this based off of a product that you're familiar with. So for me, the most recent thing I was doing at that point was Google Cloud. So they said, oh, you could do this based off of BigQuery and Dataproc and Big Lake and things like that, or you could do it based off of Databricks. We suggest you do it something that you're familiar with, because they're not looking to, quote unquote, they're not looking to see that your knowledge on Databricks is so high that you could just go in on day one. They're more looking to see how you interact with a mock customer situation. But anytime that I've actually interviewed for a company that I wanted to join, I've never taken them up on, hey, just do what you're familiar with. I always take the time and the effort to make it completely 100% relevant to Databricks. So my interview, because I was interviewing for the healthcare space in Databricks, I decided, okay, I'm going to base this off of a customer that I previously had in my career when I was in the healthcare space back in my IBM days. So I'm going to base it based off of that customer. I'm going to base it based off of a generic use case, because one of the things that they sort of put out there is they don't want any sort of material that you would have used in your previous role. So don't use your current work laptop. Don't use any sort of slides that you have produced at previous employees, because that's going to if they find out that, that's going to basically just lead to an automatic rejection. So just with with going on from memory, it's pretty easy to just make slides. They're not expecting you to have perfect like marketing level type of material. They're more looking at, okay, how do you approach a problem? How do you reiterate what the customer has told you previously, and how you position either Databricks or whatever product that you position to a prospective customer. The way that, and then I went through the code signal. Code signal was fine. So then it was basically scheduling the panel interview from that point in time. The panel interview had probably about 4 or 5 different people in it. They're all playing the part of the customer. But for me, there was a sales manager, a account executive, which basically is the salesperson or that is working for that sales manager. It would be somebody who, it might not be who you'd be working with directly as a solutions architect, but in the same type of pairing. There was the hiring manager, and then another solutions architect acting as like the technical portion of things. So everybody has their specific role. Those roles will be either defined previously, or you can define them when you actually start the panel interview. So somebody will play the part of, like, say, maybe the CEO. Somebody will play the part of the CTO or CIO, whichever role they want to position. Somebody's going to be more like a manager level, so more somebody like you would interact with on a day-to-day basis versus executive level. So they're going to have a mix of executive level and then the day-to-day operations folks on there. So for me, mentioned I did it based off of Databricks. It was a local hospital, and the business use case was that they had data coming off of these monitors, and they're not able to get the data in real time, and because of that, the decisions that they can make are limited based off of like batch kind of processes, so 15 minutes to a half an hour. So built a deck based off of that. First slide was actually about me. So a quick overview for everybody in the panel, describing myself. Then you go into the actual mock presentation in front of this customer. Started off with, as if you were talking to an actual customer. Anybody that's gone through these type of interviews has probably seen this kind of a thing. You go right into character once you start the interview. So going through, introducing yourself as just a quick, hi, I'm Chris Moniak. I'm a solutions architect here. I'm going to talk about Databricks and what it can do for you. Started off with the actual problem statement. So what we've heard. So this is as if this is going into like a second meeting. So you did a discovery meeting in the first portion. You didn't do the discovery meeting, but the understanding is you did some discovery with the customer before, and now you're coming back and presenting why Databricks. So went through what the actual business use case is, what the current pain points that they have are, then went into what is Databricks, so giving a high-level overview of what the platform is, and then the next following up slides would be, okay, why is this going to be relevant to you based off of the pain points that we've heard, some of the relevant industry use cases. So for this one, okay, this other customer of Databricks doesn't have to be 100% true, because you're basically just trying to convince the customer that what you're telling them is relevant to them. But I did find like a customer use case industry-wise for the healthcare vertical, and I did a slide based off of that. So that was similar to the type of use cases that I was talking to this mock customer about. And then I drilled down deeper into, okay, Unity catalog, having serverless SQL clusters, things of that nature. And then the interview was fairly interactive. So as I would talk about specific things, I would ask questions of the panel of like, is this relevant? So based off of what you heard the last time, I think this is, something that would save you in your batch processing time. What do you feel about that, Mike, or whatever the panelist names is? So you want to definitely check in. You don't want to like spew out, okay, just like talking for a half an hour, because you have an hour for the panel interview itself. So for me, whenever I present, I want to make sure that my content is truthfully only really going to be like maybe 20 to 25 minutes, because if it's truly interactive, you're going to fill up that hour pretty quickly. So that's what I like when I did my dry runs. I want to make sure that if I'm just walking through my content without asking questions or anything, 20 to 25 minutes maximum, if not a little bit shorter. But it was pretty interactive. They would ask me things about, like, okay, these aren't really gotcha questions either. These are like just trying to see like how you would react to customer questions. One of the questions that I recall was, oh, we're a Calibra shop. You're talking about Unity catalog here, but our enterprise catalog is Calibra. How does Databricks integrate with that? At that point in time, I wasn't 100% sure of like, does it integrate? How does it actually work with Databricks? So my response was, well, my understanding is we can integrate with third-party catalogs, but let me be 100% sure. I'll get back to you on that to see what the integration points are, what type of connectors we have available for Calibra. And then I asked like some follow-up questions of like, okay, well, what are some of the data sources you're currently using with Calibra to see like what the landscape was, because that's another thing that they want to see too. They want to see that you're not just spewing out this product and hoping that they buy into it. You're almost using this as like another like discovery kind of a meeting to say, okay, based off of what they're doing in Calibra right now, we could talk to them to the next time or send them another email about, oh, this is like one of the reasons you would use Unity Catalog more than something like Calibra. And then like just like general type of questions as well, based off of the content that you're presenting to them. And then like I'd say like the last like 15 or so minutes, once I was done with my presentation, were more questions about myself, like some of the customers that I've interacted with. It was basically like the panel trying to like feel me out if I'm, again, going to be a team fit for the opening that they have. And and you do have a few minutes at the end to ask questions. So like one of the things I sort of glanced over for the hiring manager interview was that you do have time to ask questions, and then so you definitely want to be prepared with thoughtful questions as well, especially like once you hear more about the role and what the role entails. And after that, it's pretty much then it was stated that there might be a director level meeting after that, but I never had that director level meeting. It just got to the point of, after a few weeks, it was, okay, we're going to send out an offer, and then based off of that, what the compensation was and everything else like that.
Yeah, awesome. This is like a very detailed view of it. Like you answer pretty much like two questions into one, like the interview process and the common interview question. And it's really interesting because they put you in a spot. Basically, like there's no like exact like list of questions you can expect, because depending on how you present during that last interview, you can have any type of question. They want to see how you kind of react to it, which is very interesting. So if you had to summarize like in like a few sentences, the whole process would be like recruiter round, right? Like, and then you have the hiring manager, and then you have this panel, and on the parallel side, you also have this like, assessment, like online assessment. Is that accurate?
Correct. One thing that now that I'm talking through this, one thing I forgot was in between the hiring round and the code assessment, there was actually a technical interview as well. So that was with a fellow solutions architect that would either be on the team that you're going to be with or just in general in the vertical. That one was based off of mostly like tell us a specific time that you worked with a customer for a data lakehouse kind of architecture. So that one you have to be like prepared with an actual customer situation that you had from beginning to end of like what it actually looked like. There were technical questions that interviewer asked as well. They were pretty high level. Like some of them were like, "Oh, walk through me like what a medallion architecture would look like. What are the differences between Avro and Parquet? What would you use each format, and where would you use each format?" That kind of stuff as well. So one of the steps that I forgot to mention initially.
Cool. That's super helpful. So this technical round is like, I guess it's really important to have this knowledge if you want to pass to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Like knowing all these differences. Do you recall any other question or like maybe concept that like candidates should prepare for to be ready for this round?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, if you're not familiar with what a data lake, what data analytics, data warehousing, like a lakehouse kind of architecture is, that is something you want to be 100% spun up on, because they're not looking to see if you're like 300, 400 level. They're more looking to see if you've done something like this previously. So it's more about being able to articulate like where you would use certain type of architectures. So like where you would use something that's more data warehouse centric, where you would use something that's more data lake centric. So differences of like how you would interact with structured data, unstructured data, any sort of like machine learning experience that you have, any sort of like nowadays, especially, this is huge in Databricks, is like anything that's Gen AI or model surfing, that is like going to be like half of your conversation. So they're looking to see like, what have you done with model serving? What have you done with any sort of Gen AI kind of workloads? So those are going to be key. They're going to look for things like basic SQL skills, Python skills as well. Like I mentioned, nothing like very deep. They're not going to like expect you to build out a PyTorch model or something on the fly, but they're basically going to just get a sense of like how familiar are you with like the main concepts around data warehousing, data lakes, data formats, AI, ML, that kind of stuff. So you should definitely have, at the minimum, a high level view on each of these subject areas. Yeah, so like some of the things, like, granted, I've been doing this for so long, it's been second nature to me. But some of this I did brush up on stuff like using platforms like Udemy, Coursera, things like that, to get a little bit more deeper on like the Python sort of stuff. Because I've always done SQL, but Python was like new to me. So doing things like that help you to get prepared for like the technical portion of the interview.
Awesome. Yeah, this is super helpful. I want to go over some. I know you cover some of that when you walk us through the whole process. Like, what are the do's and don'ts like for like a candidate in general? Like, we would call it like the red flag or the green flag that like you would like mention here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I guess I'll start off with the don'ts because they're pretty much a little bit more easier. Um, don't is going to be don't try to pretend that you know a concept when you don't. You're never going to get any bonus points of like trying to answer something confidently when the person, especially like on a technical interview portion, when that person is going to know what that subject is, they're going to have like some sort of questions beforehand. The better way of approaching something like that is going to be either just flat out saying, hey, I've never really done that in my work career, or going into like, oh, well, my high level understanding of that is this, but then again, explaining I've never really done that hands on. So definitely don't try to overstate your abilities, because that's going to be a big red flag for them, because they're then looking at that saying, hey, if he's going to try to pretend that he knows something in front of me, what is he going to do in front of the customer? So you always want to have that mindset of like, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for like how you interact with somebody, and they're applying that to like how you would interact with a customer. So that brings me to like the do portion of things. So do be curious. So do, obviously, prep is 100% key. If you show that you're prepared for the interviews and you've done some sort of research on what they're going to be asking, that's going to be a big plus for them. Definitely brush up on SQL skills, on Python, on the whole model serving portion of things, like where you would use certain specific machine learning models, various workflows. So like the from source to target type of workflows. So going from a transactional database all the way to the reporting end of things, like in a data platform. So brushing up on things like data movement. Spark, Databricks is a Spark-based platform, right? For me, at least, they never really asked like deep Spark level kind of questions. So it was more just like general based knowledge. If you do know Spark, like if you are an ETL developer and you've used kind of Spark workflows before, then that's something that you definitely want to put out there and make known that like the deep level architectural underpinnings of what Spark actually does, where you would use certain functions, like how you would use certain partitioning strategies, like some of the troubleshooting, that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah, this is super helpful. So we kind of closed the part of the interview process and like what it encompasses in general. I want to go over like kind of the working side of working at Databricks, like in general, like the work-life balance, and then we can go over the compensation as well that like a candidate would expect for this role.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, work-life balance wise, how was it? Like, I know you stayed there like a year. Like, how would you rate it from 1 to 10, and why?
Yeah, it's definitely a very fast-paced environment. I'd say that if you're looking for somewhere where you're going to be working from 9 to 5 and that's it, that's definitely not the place to be. I'm not going to say that I was working 8 hours every day, but there's going to be times where you can work 8 hours and get away with it. But I would say my days were more closer to the 12-hour a day. Um, Once you get past the initial ramp up period where you're going through the self-paced learnings, you're shadowing calls and everything else like that, it gets pretty intense because the speed at which Databricks operates is pretty high. So, and this is like evident of any like startups, or like Snowflake was the same way, where you need to respond to your customers. 24 hours is like a maximum of responding to a customer. So if there's something that you don't know, then you're going to be either reaching out to other people on your team, to the specialist solutions architect team, or you're going to have to find that answer yourself. So that does lead to a lot of long days. And that does lead to, especially like for me, the biggest thing was getting prepared for customer meetings. So if I was going to be presenting to a customer the next day, or if I knew I was going to be presenting to a customer next week, that's where I spent the bulk of my time, is getting those presentations perfect, trying to answer any outstanding questions beforehand, and then meeting with the sales team, getting the strategy of like how we're going to approach this upcoming meeting, how we're going to tailor the presentation to making sure that we're covering the customer pain points that are happening. So a lot of that eats up your time as well. But I definitely say it's you're probably going to be working closer to that 60 hours unless you're truly been doing this for so long that it's going to be second nature to you, like that, the whole Databricks thing. Like if you were a Databricks customer at one point in time and you moved into the solutions architect kind of a role, it might be a little bit easier because there's going to be certain things with the product that you don't have to learn. Where for me, I didn't use Databricks beforehand, so there were a lot of hours that were spent learning specific portions of the platform itself to get better acquainted so that I can then articulate those details to my customers. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Cool. We're gonna cover the last part of it, of the interview, is like in terms of compensation in general, like how does it look like? Do you guys have like a base salary, stock, and then bonus? And like what would like a solution architect expect in terms of compensation when they join?
Yep. So the compensation is pretty similar to other vendors that I've worked at. It's going to be, unless things have changed, it's going to be a 70-30 split. So that means 70% of your salary, 70% of your on-target earnings is going to be salary. The other 30% is going to be they don't like to call it commission, they like to call it a bonus, but basically that bonus is based off of the number that you have. And when I was there, the number was at the business unit plus 2 level. So your salespeople, they have their individual quotas. That all adds up to whatever the sales manager quota is. Then you go a level above that, which is the rest of the sales manager in that specific vertical. So for me, healthcare and life sciences, I was in the healthcare portion, which is like half of that. And there was a life science vertical, which was the other half. So you have the sales managers, that's the one level up from you. Then the second level up is like the director level. So each director is responsible for either the healthcare portion or the life science portion. And then the BU plus 2 is like the VP level at that point. So they have an overarching number that has everything, life science and healthcare, all tied into one. So your bonus compensation is based off of attainment that VP gets. The way that leads to more collaboration. So I've been in places where your bonus or your commission portion, that 30%, is tied directly to your quote unquote number. So if you're paired with a 1 or 2 salesperson, that salesperson's attainment is basically your attainment. For Databricks, when I left, that wasn't the case. You're graded as far as performance-wise on like how you interact with your AEs and how they do business-wise, but compensation is based off of that BU +2 level, which leads to a lot more collaboration and leads to a lot more help from the rest of the team, because it's not at that point, it's not hey, I can't help you because if I help you, I'm not going to meet my number. If I help you, I help meet the greater number, which is going to help everybody on the team. So that's why they have that kind of approach, so that everybody on the technical side, the solutions architect and special solutions architect, are all marching towards one goal versus a single narrow view of the accounts that they work on. So there's that. So there's the salary, there's the bonus / commission, whatever you want to call it, and then there's equity. With Databricks being a private company still, the equity is based off of whatever their fair market value is decided at that point in time. So when I got my offer, it was a set number of RSUs. At that time too, they weren't, well, they had an expiration date, so they weren't taxed at that point in time. Now that they've removed the expiration date, where you get those RSUs and they're yours forever until the company either goes public or they offer to buy them back, they are taxed. So that's one thing that has changed in the interim when I was there, between after I left as well. So 3 portions: salary, bonus, and RSUs.
Cool, awesome. Could you mind, like, is it possible to share some like numbers in general, like just rough numbers, and like what the TC would be, like a range in general for like solution architect? I guess it depends also on the level, but like if you can give us like a range.
Yeah, for me, I could speak to what my compensation was for. So as a solutions architect, you're what's called a level 5. For me, my compensation was on target earnings, which is I'm counting now just the salary and bonus. On target earnings for me was 220. So I think it works out to be about like 158,000 for the salary, and then like 60 some thousand for the bonus salary, not salary, the sales bonus portion of things. When I got hired, my RSUs were, and I negotiated this up at about 6,000. From what I heard from other people that got hired after me, the RSUs were going to be a little bit lower. That's basically because, one, they're looking for more RSUs for their investors. And as they're getting closer to going to IPO, the fair market value for those RSUs is starting to climb. So between when I started and when I left, my fair market value went 2x. It started at like, I think 78 or so for one RSU, and it ended up somewhere in the like a little bit less than 150. I think it was 130 the last time when I left Databricks. So that's one thing to keep in mind. For me, the RSUs were negotiable. For the salary and the bonus, that wasn't negotiable. When I got the offer and I asked for what I could negotiate, RSUs was the one thing that they had a little bit of wiggle room on.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I think we went over so many topics today, and I think I think this would be super helpful for all the candidates for Databricks. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.